Hello and welcome to the 42's Facebook Live. Now, the October Bank Holiday weekend is always a big one in the Irish sporting calendar, and no different this year as the 39th edition of the Dublin City Marathon takes place this Sunday. To look ahead to the event and to answer a couple of your last minute questions, we're joined here by the Dublin Marathon Race Director Jim Aughney. Jim, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here. And again, if anybody has any last minute hot topics that they want, just send them in to us and we'll try and answer them as best we can.
Yeah, it's a mad week for you. We were just talking before we came on air. You've a million different things to do, and kind of 12 months of planning is coming to fruition in these couple of days.
Yes, these last few days, again, you know, when you've planned stuff for 6 months out and then you're going to people now and say, listen, remember that meeting we had 6 months ago, where is item A, B or C? And you get a blank face looking back at you and say, oh, I didn't know that's what you meant. That's when that's when we start to panic. But yeah, it's nearly an 18 months schedule, because we'll be out in New York a few days after Dublin, promoting for 2019. So we've had to have flyers and artwork and backdrops and everything ready for that. So yeah, it's I suppose nearly an 18-month cycle now to get through.
Yeah, 20,000 entries, a record entry this year, sold out 5 months in advance. The growth of the event in your kind of reign as race director has been huge, but particularly over the last couple of years. Again, huge demand this year, 20,000 as we said, taken to the streets of the capital on Sunday. Can you kind of explain the growth over the last couple of years?
Yes, the growth, 20,000, we were delighted again. If you had said 10 years ago that we would sell out at 20,000, I think a lot of people would have thought we were a little bit crazy. But from ourselves, you know, the event, as you say, is in its 39th year. 1980 was the first. In the early years, there was quite a number running in the event, again because of economic conditions that were there at the time. People had a lot of time and did come out and run in the marathon and running in general, because it was a cheap form of exercise. The economic upturn then resulted in people had less time, and the numbers in the marathon began to decline. So much so that, like, in the late 90s, we had less than 3,000 entered in the marathon. From there, we actually heard that the big American charities at the time, Team in Training, Team Diabetes and all of those, they were trying to send a group over to Dave Bedford in the UK, and London was selling out, so he said he didn't need them. So we went to them and said, listen, why not come to Dublin? That was very, very successful, so much so that in the year 2001, or in the year 2000 I should say, we had more running in the Dublin Marathon from America than we had from Ireland.
Okay.
Obviously 2001 9/11 happened and the whole world travel turned upside down. So then it was the idea that we had of introducing a race series, and so in 2002 we added a race series to try help the Irish get through a progression of races so that they could prepare for the marathon. And that was one of the biggest catalysts then to get the Irish people out. So they did the 5 mile, the 10 mile, the half marathon, and the following year then they joined us in the marathon. The biggest catalyst after that was in 2016 when we changed to a Sunday, and primarily because it wasn't a bank holiday in Northern Ireland or the UK, so their numbers have risen. They're able to come now and compete on the Sunday. But the Irish people really took to the Sunday because they can actually stay on Sunday night, enjoy the night and go home at their leisure on Monday morning, rather than, you know, before they were trying to rush down on Monday for work the next morning. So I suppose they're the big key ones that have taken it from where it was a number of years ago to the 20,000 now.
Yeah, when you took over as race director in 97, you were saying that it was just under 3,000 entries to what we are today. It's established as a, as you say, world-renowned event, fifth largest in Europe, you know, known as kind of the friendly marathon as well. Anyone who's done it or has, you know, watched it will know the great atmosphere on the streets during the event. What's kind of contributed to that in your view, or what have you kind of done to facilitate that growth?
Well, again, we've reached out to all the different communities out there and trying to get them to come out and support. If you have Irish people and particularly Dublin people running, the snowball effect starts in that, I'll go out and watch my neighbour or friend or relative actually running, and then they see that, get caught up in the atmosphere on the day and say, I'd love to run that. So it was a matter of trying to get that ball rolling, and we introduced a lot of cheering zones, face painting and all of that to try and keep people out for as long as possible to cheer not only the leaders through but the tail enders, and that has developed a great atmosphere on the route, and we're just adding to those each time. Another big catalyst was when we moved into Fingal at the time. Castleknock has been a phenomenal success with the number of people and the support that's there. So through the years we've tailored the route, to improve it. When we went into Castleknock, we continued from RDS. We've come straight in now into the finish, which has meant a much longer straight, easier for the runners, but a lot of people congregate down there. So it was making it easier for people to come out and support. But as we get more and more locals and particularly Irish into the event, their friends and relations will never come out and support them. But the Dublin people have been great. We do a leaflet drop to every single house on the route. We do advertising, and again, the cheering zones with the little clappers and whatever is great to get the kids out. And once they're there, and you've, as I say, the face painting or whatever, that the family have to stay out then while the kid is getting the face painting, and just keeps them out there, keeps them amused, bit of music, and it just builds the atmosphere. It doesn't make the distance any shorter for the runner. You still have to do 26.2 miles, but I think in their mind, when you get cheered on all the way around, it mentally it makes the journey shorter.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the route there. It's the same again from last year. Obviously for the runner, that's adds the consistency, continuity, but as you say, for the spectator, it's a known route. So if you come out outside your house in Ballsbridge or Castleknock, wherever it is, that it's going to be there every bank holiday weekend, October bank holiday weekend.
Yes, that was a major thing, and again, thanks to the Gardaí and Dublin Bus and Lewis and Dublin City Council, we went through a period where we were changing the route every year, and we said particularly for the runner, but certainly for the motorist, and as you say, the resident itself, like they were coming out each year not knowing whether the route was coming from the left or the right or whether they're passing there at all. So it was a big I suppose improvement to not only the traffic in the city, Dublin Bus, that we all had a consistent route and we could all plan from day one in the new year to know what the route was going to be. And that has helped with the spectators as well, because they knew exactly where the good points and the congested points to stay away from and get to an area where they can see people. So it helps not only the runner, the traffic in the city, we can better plan for it. If we have a pinch point, we can plan and try and alleviate that rather than trying to move the route to get around it, because all that happens is it just moves the pinch point somewhere else. So it has been a big one for the city, but particularly for the runners, that the route remains consistent.
All of these are kind of controllables, so to speak, but the other variables is obviously the weather. Do you kind of look at the forecasts kind of days in advance, because obviously it does affect not only the runners but the spectators?
Yes, we're keeping a very big eye on the weather. At the moment, Sunday morning looks to be quite good. We're concerned from about 4 o'clock onwards that when dusk sets in, that it's going to get quite cold. So far, our stewards, who we need to be out on the route at the time, we're sending out soup and sandwiches to those. We have blankets, extra blankets, and provisions like that brought in for runners who maybe, at that time, they probably, a lot of them could be walking or running quite slow, and they come into us cold. So we've added extra provisions over yesterday, and there, again, to be meetings each day with the Gardaí and HSE and our medical team to see what the conditions are like and do we need to add anything else. The last one of those will obviously be at 12 o'clock on Saturday, and that's, if we need to call up anything else at that stage, we have the ability to do it. But yes, the weather is one thing we can't control, but we have to keep a very, very big eye on it and see what's coming in. At the moment, Saturday, windy and wet, has probably as big an impact on us than the runners, because we're trying to build marquees, put up structures and everything. So if the wind gets up high, we can't do that and could put delay our build a little bit. So Saturday, Friday evening and Saturday are really crucial for us for the build. For the runner themselves, obviously Sunday is the big day. And at the moment it looks to be cold, very cold in the morning, but again, that'll only concern the runners while they're, standing around in the start areas. Once they get going, they're fine. The big concern for us there is our stewards, who could be standing for 4 or 5 hours in the one spot if it's quite cold. So again, sent out communications to all our runners, all our stewards last night, to bring the extra jacket, bring an extra pair of gloves, wrap up well, and so on and so forth. So we're not only thinking of the runner in all of this, we have to look after the welfare of our stewards and give them the advance warning of what the weather will be like. The runner, will generally be okay. They'll be moving, they'll be warmer. And the concern obviously is our stewards and the welfare that they have standing on the corner for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, sure. We'll get into some of your questions now in a minute, but I suppose one of the big things that you probably hear repeatedly, because it's sold out 5 months in advance this year, is, well, when are you going to increase the entry size, and can you move it from 20,000 up to whatever it is? What is the limit? Obviously there's different factors that you have to take into account, health and safety and all that kind of stuff. So is there kind of wiggle room there for you to expand in years to come?
We're making a few changes this year, slight changes. Again, the wave times have moved out to 15 minutes, which is an extra 5 from what it was last year. We didn't let people pick their own wave this year, which the reason for that was a lot of people, whether they were able to or not, picked wave 1. And we tagged those and looked at them throughout the course and saw that they weren't capable of running in wave 1, even though they picked it. You could see the peak at the start was in wave 1, but even by the time we got to the 10k, that peak had moved back. So we were seeing then that a lot of people were in there that shouldn't really be in there. So that's why this year we decided who was going into wave 1, looking at their previous times or their predicted times. So this year we've 4 waves of equal size. So we're hoping that that'll get a smoother throughput on the route itself. And then when people come into the finish, one of the things they need to watch out for this year is the baggage area, which was normally you could exit at both ends of Merrion Square South, will not be you will not be able to exit on the west this year. You have to continue and use the one-way system, similar to when they entered. And we're taking a slightly bigger footprint in that the exits are on Fitzwilliam Street and James's Street East. So we're hoping with those little small changes that we can add numbers to the event next year. But you're looking at small numbers, as in maybe another 1,000. You're not looking at going to 30,000 or even 25. I think is beyond the physical limits of what we have in Merrion Square. Okay,
you were saying before we came on air that you'd be surprised by the amount of people who kind of after the closing date or after you kind of have to shut entries, that they'd be ringing the office looking for an entry or trying their arm. It's amazing. The demand is obviously there, so the capacity, you could move it, but it's just, as you said, just beyond that limit that you could go to.
Oh, there's no doubt the capacity is there. A very interesting statistic, a couple of weeks after we closed this year, we just looked at the increase in communication to the office, and we had over 1,200 people who were looking for an entry, who had actually seen on the website that it was closed, and yet they contacted the office. I don't know how many looked at it and said, oh gee, I'm too late, there's no point in me contacting the office. But there certainly is a huge demand for entries into Dublin, and again we're delighted with that. I mean, many years ago we weren't selling out, and you were trying to figure out ways of how to get extra people into it. So to the team that has been there from the start, it's great to see that the demand is there, and let long may it continue.
Yeah, certainly. I suppose the continued support of SSE Electricity as the title sponsor has helped grow that as well. Getting on to a couple of questions, and I know for the runners this week it's kind of a mix of emotions. Most of them will have done their serious training now, and it's kind of tapering down towards Sunday's event, so it's a mix of emotions, excitement, nerves, all that kind of stuff. What kind of, you've obviously been at the helm since '97, so you've seen a lot of runners come through the finish line. What's kind of your kind of best advice for them now? What are we, 4 or 5 days in advance?
Well, at this stage, you're certainly not going to gain any fitness, but if you do something silly, you will certainly lose it. So one of the things, again, it's a really, really nervous time for runners, because the last 12 weeks you've been so used to getting out and doing your 8 miles, 10 miles, and so on and so forth, and now you're stopping running after 3 or 4 miles, and the tension is building up and you're getting nervous. But resist the temptation. You need to let the body recover, and don't do anything silly in the last couple of weeks. The biggest thing for anybody at this stage is, do not do anything in the last couple of days that you haven't tried and tested throughout your training. And that may be, you should have the shoes, clothes that you're going to wear on Sunday, have tried them out last Sunday on your last medium to long run. Make sure everything is ready, and don't do anything silly. Don't try any new foods. If you're not used to an Indian, don't go out for an Indian between this and then. So again, it's just anything that you have tried on your run, certainly do that. If you haven't tried the products we have on the route, don't experiment on race day with anything like that. Stick to what your tried and tested plan is. But that's the best advice you can give anybody is, ease back. It will seem strange for you, but you need to let the body recover and take the time to recover. Don't go now and say, listen, I'm going to lose fitness if I don't do a 10 mile or a 20 mile, in the middle of the week. Resist the temptation and let the body recover. Yeah,
one of the big things for people is that nutrition during the race, so whether it's getting water on board or Lucozade or the gels that you provide. Few questions coming into us: when will you provide them, at what kind of stages during the race? And it's water stations, Lucozade stations, and I think the energy gel stations that you provide during the 26.2 miles.
Yes, we've 10 Celtic Pure water stations, again the 250ml sports cap bottles, so roughly every 3 miles. Obviously with the street furniture you have in Dublin, you can't put them exactly every 3 miles, but that's what the aim is, to try and get them there. We have Lucozade Sport and 4 spots on the route, and the High Five gels on 2. So a different variety of Lucozade will be orange and raspberry. Some people like orange and some people like raspberry, so we'll cater for both. And again, the 3 different flavours of the gels, so we're hoping that we'll cater for everybody, because some people find that they don't want a particular flavour. So all the flavours are there, so get them. But come back to what I said previously: if you haven't trained with them, don't experiment with them on race day. The chances are you'll be fine, but it's not the day to experiment.
Yeah, question here from Sean again comes down to kind of nutrition and the days leading into the race itself. How far ahead of the race would meal choices affect your performance?
Again, normally they say in the last 3 days you should be upping your pasta intake. And again, that doesn't mean you go out and you buy a 2 kilogram bag of pasta and put that on and eat that. Just generally eat what you're normally used to eating. Most runners like pasta anyway, and just top up the extra little bit of pasta or whatever. But again, don't go mad on it. There's no point in arriving in on the Sunday morning and you feel really heavy and full and bloated because you've had huge amount of pasta and so on and so forth. The thing with the pasta and the drinking of the water, it will hold on to water that you drink over the next couple of days. So that type of thing in the last 3 days is probably where you will get the best benefit out of that. But drink plenty of water, especially the day before. Now the temperatures we're seeing at the moment, it looks like it'll be maybe 7 or 8 degrees when the race starts, which can be a danger in itself, because people then say, on the morning of the race, oh, it's cold, I won't need the water. Drink the water regardless of what the temperature is going to be. And what we've seen over the past is it's nearly more dangerous for us when it's very, very cold in the morning, because, as I say, people don't drink the water then. They say, oh, I won't be sweating, I won't need it. Do drink it, take it on board, maybe not in as big a quantities if it was 14 or 15 degrees, excuse me, but don't stay away from the water just because it's at 6 or 7 degrees on the morning of the race.
Yeah, a couple of people got in touch yesterday about the kind of the logistics of pre-race, because if you're a first timer as well, you're not familiar with the start and how the waves work, with 20,000 people all descending on the start line, not all at once, obviously, as we said, the waves, but at a similar enough time. What's kind of your best advice on when to arrive and dropping your bag off in the right area?
You're going to be nervous on the morning anyway, so best get in, get up and get into the start area rather than sitting at home expending nervous energy. What we will when you pick up your race number, you will get a clear plastic bag. You must use that coming into us. We have a search area. We've 2 search areas where people will come in. If your clear plastic bag visible, you will walk right in. If you bring a rucksack or anything else, we will stop and request a search of the bag. So make sure that that's number 1 on your priority. Use the plastic bag and have that visible. You will walk in, and then when you go into Merrion Square South, you will already have been assigned a race number, and you will see the big signs of where to place the bag. Just hand in the bag. Our own baggage crew, then we have over 100 in the baggage area. They'll sort the numbers from 1 to 20,000 as the runners are out enjoying themselves around Dublin. So when they come back in, they'll be all in sequence then and be able to hand them back in. But it's much better for them to get in early. Even if your wave time is not the 9 o'clock, get in early and join with the crowds that's there. And again, if you're in the start area with the crowds around you, you won't notice the cold as much as walking into the baggage area yourself when you're on your own. So the general warmth of the crowd will keep you warmed up, as I say, in the morning. So you're much better to get in early. 8:30 is the very, very latest should be in, because you've probably trained in and run a number of races with a couple of thousand in them, but when you have, as I say, 20,000 coming in, the numbers there trying to get into each of the waves, you'll have 5,000 heading to each wave. So it's a lot of people, and don't underestimate the time it will take to get from the baggage area right up to the start line itself. And again, in our final instructions, we give guidelines to say, listen, it'll take you 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever to get from Merrion Square South into the purple wave or the green wave. So read the final instructions and adhere to those. Get in plenty of time, because if you're there early, you'll get up further into the group, further up in the group, rather than arriving and be at the very, very tail end of the group, because the groups can take probably 3 or 4 minutes to cross the start line. Now that's like you have a chip time, that doesn't really matter. But if you're at the front of the group with a clear road ahead of you, you'll get into your running stride much, much better and much quicker. Yeah,
for sure. Post-race as well, you mentioned, a couple of small changes to the exit systems in Merrion Square, but just Mike has a question, what should he do kind of immediately post-race so he still be able to stand on Monday? You obviously have, there's bags being given out, so there's water and different snacks that you can take on board immediately post-race.
Yes, I mean, in the post-race bag you'll have the Celtic Pure Water and Lucasade again, and there'll be a bar in that as well. What I would say to people is, don't sit down when you finish. Again, for a number of reasons. It'll be difficult to get up, and again, we want people to keep moving. But gentle walk, keep walking, and that's much, much easier on the body the next day. And again, the next day, if you can get out and get for a gentle walk, it will help relieve the pressure, and I think everybody on that evening will be walking downstairs or walking backwards downstairs. But that's part of the tradition, I think, with marathon runners now at this stage. That evening or certainly the next day, you're walking downstairs backwards. But if you can get out and just do a gentle walk, it'll help keep the blood flow and get rid of the lactic acid, and that is probably the best. A lot of strenuous stretching is probably not the best. The muscles are quite tight and all of that afterwards. The next day or the following day, if you can get a light massage on them, just to ease them out, would help a lot. But generally walking for 3 days afterwards is probably the best advice. You've completed a big bulk of training. You deserve a little bit of downtime after it, and do take it. You're not going to lose fitness by taking a few days off and going very, very easy, because you certainly need to give the body time to recover.
Yeah, and the Marathon Expo opens on Friday and Saturday in the RDS, where runners can collect their race pack.
Yes, indeed, the main hall of the RDS. Just come in there. We're in the Serpentine Hall. Bring your acceptance slip, and you'll pick up your race number, race programme, and the bag itself, the baggage bag, which is a clear bag that you must use on the race morning. So make sure you get that and mind it. Mind your race number, because once it's issued, that's what you've got for the day, and we can't get you another one. So get those, put them in a safe place when you go home. Pin the number onto your race vest that you're going to use on the morning, and have it all done and dusted on Friday evening or Saturday morning whenever you leave the Expo, rather than trying to do that on Sunday morning when you're rushing out the door, because you will forget something then, and have it all pre-planned.
Yeah, the main thing is enjoy the weekend between the Expo and then obviously the big day itself on Sunday.
Yes, we have a number of very good speakers in the Expo. Again, marathon advice, but again, other different topics that are there. So take your time, enjoy the Expo as well. Don't spend all day standing there, obviously, but get in, take in some of the stands and some of the very good speakers that will be there, and ask questions. We have an information video and talk going every hour. So if you have any last minute questions, Eamon Dolan will be on that. And go to Eamon. If you don't want to ask him in public while he's speaking, go to him afterwards and he'll answer any last minute questions that people have. We also have a pace stand where the pacers, the people that are actually pacing, will be there on the stand if you want to ask them any questions about what pace to be going at for the different ones. We have pace bands, and pick up a band for your target time and wear that on the day, and it'll be a guide to you then to what times you need to hit on each of the different miles as you go along. So a number of different things. Again, we have a very good merchandising stand there, so pick up a memento of the occasion for yourself or the family, and something to remember the event by.
Brilliant. Jim, best of luck to yourself and your team on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
And if you're one of the 20,000 taken to the streets on Sunday, best of luck.